Hello everyone, thanks for joining me. This video is piggyback to a video that I had just watched, and it was through the man who defines himself as Peter of England, and he was discussing a part one of a series that he's going into how the banking cartel took over took over all the countries, and he does a great job. The issue that I want to bring to our attention is, what are you interested in? And do you even know what you're interested in? That is what you need to come to realization for your own self. What do you want? Are you wanting complete rights before law? Or are you wanting some sort of, or activate some sort of right through a status under law? That's for you to decide. Myself, in my video series, and from what I've always spoke to, I'm speaking to full freedom, that which is my dominion rights. And my dominion rights, as are your dominion rights, are before English law. They have to be. For if they weren't, that means that you have been thrown in or tossed into voluntary servitude or slavery, because then you have no choice. Choice, you have to have 100% choice. That choice is actually your right to not to join a group or not join a group. And English law is a group. The English law actually separates, and does so very well, has perfected your dominion rights from those of those rights created through the English law and agreements that have been made thereunder. It has to, in order for law to be perfected. Law is perfected. It has nothing to do with your inherent rights. For instance, if the English law is rules over actions to those interests in land based on possession, to which that possession becomes the right to which English law administrates over. In fact, in common law, there's really no true definition of ownership. It is rather a right of possession to the exclusion of another. That is what English law deals with. It deals with those agreements. Now, as soon as you agree or come in and possess land subject to English law, then of course you are now relegated to those rules that have been created in order to protect those rights. Okay? That's very important for you to comprehend, or for anyone to comprehend. In the same mannerism, if you were employed with any company, and let's just use Walmart, because right now you're employed by the corporation that you classify as a country, okay, indirectly, is you're subject to those rules and actions. And that's okay, because each corporation has to have certain rules and actions, rules over actions. So if you are not employed through that corporation, does that corporation have any rights over you? In the same way that we can use an analogy of sitting down to a board game. If you're sitting down with others to a board game, you are in an agreement. Thereby, you are in agreement to be moving for that period of time to move accordingly to the rules of the game, so that the gameplay can continue as it is mandated by its rules. You are in agreement, tacitly albeit, but you are in agreement to the corporations that is based on territorial rules to which government administrates over. Government has rights over territory, not you. You are considered or construed to be within the territory because of your actions. And, better to say as well, it's because you have yet let your will known in the law so that you can show that you're not under that jurisdiction. So it's the lack of you enforcing your will or letting your will be known or your intent, which then allows the system to continue on with that lack of knowledge, which makes sense. The system cannot be continually impeded by people's lack of not doing things. The system has to run according to the rules, just like a corporation. Again, if you were under Walmart, every little issue that an employee has, Walmart cannot stop operation in order to deal with that one person. It has to continue on while that issue is relevant, and that issue will be solved within the rules of the system that was created for that corporation to operate, just like your own family. Under my house, here are the rules. It is the same. House of Parliament, it is the same. You are doing something that is affecting an obligation for you to perform, but it has nothing to do with your dominion rights, because an individual law separates your dominion rights from those interests of English law, which English law only affects interest in land, to which then you make an agreement by your actions that then allow English law to be used as an enforcement over those obligations. Very important. So how would you like to? Again, I started from back in 2005 to reach this point. To the very moment that you look at any video, whether it's from Parliament, whether it's from the bar union or court system, or from any law group, that the minute you watch it, the minute it turns on, and even to the matter that you can read the title, you know what the subject matter is speaking about. And that subject matter is either A, your dominion rights, which no one, I have not seen one video, I'm the only one that I know of, on YouTube or any other of these shared media that speaks to the law. I don't know anyone else does. Okay? To know whether they're speaking about your dominion rights, again, separated from the common law and the English common law, from equity law. When is it when you would like to have that power to know exactly what that video, whether you want to spend any time in it whatsoever? Immediately, by listening to it, you'll know, oh, that's that. No, I don't need to listen to it. That's the power you have, and that's the power that's always with you. It's just your misunderstanding of what law is. And I also would like to now drop down off the idea of common law. There's English common law, which is the hierarchical predominant law that manages all English law systems. Then there's a common and customary laws that each corporation or each country is relegated to. That's that common law. So these people speak, well, I'm going to use the common law. Which one? And the judge can only speak to that matter that you bring in, because subject matter and status create jurisdiction. What status are you using to enact? And then, is that status have the right to enforce an agreement against the subject matter that you want remedy for? Do you know? That's what is going to be, that is what needs to be determined. Okay? Now, Peter of England does a great job of going through the history of how the system had been now overreached by the banksters, we like to call them. But the banksters are just doing their job just like anyone else. It's another agreement. You want to come in under the agreement? Okay. So be it. Know what that agreement is. And then you make a real choice whether you want to get involved or not. Okay? But you don't need to get involved. In fact, you don't need to get involved in any system. You have dominion rights. That's full freedom. You've never had full, never. No one that I know of has full freedom. Okay? So, Peter speaks to that mannerism. But here's what Peter says, and this is around 43:15. Now, I knew immediately what Peter was talking about the second he started talking about it. Okay? So, I already knew that it was nothing to do with common law and had nothing to do with my dominion rights. But I want to listen to it because, you know what, that's a lot of good information just for my entertainment purpose, if you will. Okay? At around 43 minutes and 15 seconds, Peter goes on and says, a move, I don't say this might be more paraphrasing, but I think I wrote pretty much what he stated, and he can correct me if he wants to, if he listens to this. He says, the move from common law, it was a move from common law because since 1933 there was no lawful money to back contract. Okay? He had said there was no lawful money to back contract. That's what happened in 1933 and had us move from the common law. Okay, well, what common law are you speaking about, as we've already addressed? The English common law or the common law of the territory? Okay, now here is where I'm going to assist in the exact mannerism that you should look at that video. He's speaking about government and how the systems had all been amalgamated through the banking cartel, who loan money in order to loan money, albeit to both sides of a front, whether whether U.S. or Germany or England or Japan or whatever, it doesn't matter. He is speaking to, because banksters and banking cartel can only speak to equitable interest, equity. Thereby, does bankers have anything to do with common law? Has any of the government ever had anything to do with the English common law? The answer is no. The English common law holds the legal title. The English common law is settled. The English common law was settled absolute. The land was fully settled in 1925, the Settled Land Act. And this is where it's going to get interesting, because he goes through how the system in equity and the banking cartel took control, which is like sitting down to a game of Monopoly. We took control of the Monopoly board. But what does that have to do with the common law? Nothing. It has absolutely nothing to do with common law. Just like when you stand up from the game and go do something else, that game has nothing to do with your immediate life. Nothing. So when we speak about anytime we speak about government, and this is a good thing to get through your mind. When we speak about the monarchy, the chattel that sits upon the throne, the title, okay, monarchy, not the crown, the constitutional monarchy that was enacted after 1688. We're talking about the monarchy, who's holding in trust on behalf of society the land for the people. And there's no one on that side, never is anyone speaking to that. They're speaking about equity, always equity, equity. Equity is subject to a trust, okay? And in 1925, and this is very important, now we're speaking about law and we're talking about equity. We're not speaking about those interests of the board game within equity. We're speaking of predominantly what English law is and those interests in equity. 1925 was the settlement of land, to which Settled Land Act settled the interest of the strict land settlement. That's in the common law interest. Okay, that deals with common law. And then they brought in the Law Property Acts for citizens and for government to administrate under a trust for sale. See, a trust for sale means that anything that's going in under that is subject to that trust. Just like if you're sitting to a board game, anything under that board game is subject to those rules. And those rules, based on the players and how they want to play it, they can change the rules, because that common law interest, the succinct rules, are there to establish the foundations of the game, but if people want to create new rules, whereby, for instance, they just, hey, let's incrementally raise every time we pass go, raise by $25. Every time you pass go, instead of 250, it raises incrementally by $25 every time you pass. Does that have anything to do with the foundational rules of common law? No, that's an agreement within the equitable concept of the game that we're going to play it this way. You can do that, and that's what the entire system that you're dealing with, and that was the entire system that what Peter of England is discussing. He's discussing equity. Okay, the common law that you want to deal with is that land interest, and that's the strict settlement. That is the Settle Land Act 1925. And I'm going to show you what really is happening. If you want to know the foundations of why all of this is happening, even the idea of environmental awareness, I'm not going to use the catchphrase everybody uses, and I'm going to use the for the idea that started in 2020 at the beginning of the year, and I won't even mention it, that you're speaking to an interest within the board, within the game. And that interest is true just like Hogwarts School is true in Harry Potter. That idea is true within the system and within equity and within the banking cartel. All those are true. If you want to deal with that, that is true. But what has it got to do with the common law and the land? And what has it got to do with your dominion right? Nothing. Everything's perfectly separated, so nothing interferes and nothing commingles. So when we're dealing, again, with anything within the system, we're dealing with the board game. Just think about that. It's a board game, and you have the right to relieve that in any one matter. Now, I'm going to read something. Let's say and I'm going to show you, because we're dealing with law. We're not going to deal with matters of equity and those fights within equities like the board game. You're now dealing with, after play has started, you're dealing with things that are now moving away from the succinct rules in common law. You're moving it away. And if you want those issues dealt with, you cannot deal with them in the rules themselves, because you've created new agreements, and therefore that enacts a new court. Okay, are you getting this? This is what's happening. You now want to deal with matters and solve matters and seek remedy within those new agreements made after the game is in play, and then people within that game start creating new rules. Now you have to go to that court because it's separate. We're not dealing with the main rules anymore. If you want to deal with the main rules, then you got to go to court to deal with that. But no one's ever doing that. They're continuing to play, and with all the agreements that we're making and lawyers are dealing with within the system. Okay, here it is. This is Law Teacher, whose free law study resources. I'll put a link, as I put in all links to, if you want to deal with what law is. I'll add this link into it for you to read for yourself. And we're not going to read through the whole thing, but I'm going to give you a semblance of understanding of what the system is, so you don't get caught up in all the myriad of law gurus out there teaching all their different techniques how to intercourse within the system. If you want to intercourse the system, then go to them. If you want to absolutely go to full freedom and not be stuck within this quagmire that's going on and the assertion of your property rights, which is being done lawfully, by the way, then you've got to understand what law is. Okay, Law Property Act 1925. Act Summary. Before 1925, the purchase of land was fraught with difficulty for potential purchasers. The process was lengthy and cumbersome, requiring extensive investigation into the seller's right and title to sell land. Stop there for a minute. That's what lawyers are for. That's why lawyers continue to make money, because you had to investigate the property that you were purchasing, whether it was free through the encumbrances and so forth. Sorry about that, but I'm not in charge of dealing with when people call. Okay. So that's what lawyers are for. There you are. That is what lawyers are for. They're dealing with all of the agreements that are made within the game. They're had to do the extensive investigation to make sure that before a seller purchased something, before a purchaser, purchased something, his title was unencumbered. But let's go on.
Give me a call when you can. You can call collect. No worries.
Sorry about that. All right. So as we go on from this, and made more complicated by the fact that several different legal estates existed inland. Not the true legal title, that's in common law. Legal estates existing in equity, each of which had to be investigated and proved to the fullest degree. Having embarked on this extensive and time-consuming process, there was also no guarantee that the purchaser would acquire encumbered land to the title. Oh, sorry. There's a bunch of different things going off in the background, so you know, my mind's going listening to all these things. Okay. What was said here? There was also no guarantee the purchaser would acquire encumbered title to the land. This is because a purchaser would be deemed to be bound by equitable rights of third parties, even if unknown to the purchaser, through the application of the doctrine of constructive notice. You should even look at constructive trust. What does the court always do? And you're coming in with common law, or you're saying, I've got the rights as a man. Well, you're in equity, trying to deal with a matter of common law, and then trying to bring in dominion rights. You just commingle three things. That's why they'll throw you into constructive trust, because you're not bringing the true trust forward. I digressed. Let me continue. All in all, this has led to an unsatisfactory state of affairs, which was ripe for reform and prompted the introduction of a raft of legislation in 1925, including the Law Property Act 1925. The main objective of the 1925 legislation was, therefore, to facilitate and cheapen the transfer of land. Of these statutes, the LPA 1925 primarily consolidates and reforms statutory law relating to conveyancing and the law of property, and is regarded as an essential part of any conveyancer's Bible. While some of the 1925 legislation has since been updated and supplemented over time, the framework and principles outlined in the LPA 1925 remain in effect today. Now, if anybody comes to me and says, yeah, but what does it got to do with the USA? What does that got to do with Canada? Are those under English law? That solves that problem. Are you dealing with English law that was through the commentaries and commissioned to be written by Blackstone himself, edited at least 10 times, okay, to be the Bible of all English common law, to which now you are intercoursing within as a matter of equitable interest, not actually dealing with the common law? Yeah, the answer is yes. Okay, you've never not left common law, as common law is the hierarchical system, which then is, whether you deal with it or not, just like Peter of England is dealing with equity only, the common law still subsists, but is overreached by your agreement to be in equity. You overreach your dominion rights, through exercises in common law, and then you overreach those common law interests by your agreements in equity. It's simple. You're making that choice. The LPA Act of 1925 brought a bunch of different types of titles down to one. And those two titles that you're able to enact under LPA are fee simple and leaseholds. That's the only two titles that you can deal with now as a purchaser. That's what you are allowed to affect now. That's all you've ever been able to affect. Under a trust for sale, and a trust for sale means somewhere along the line it's going to have to end by the very nature of it, by the very sound of it. The trust for sale, it has to be settled. And I'm not going to go on to that, but the fact is, why right now they're moving into the fourth level of trust. You're in the third level under trust for sale. They're moving to a fourth level, which means they're doing everything lawfully and moving it in to that new trust, to which usurps your property rights as a quasi-trustee. And now they're going to be all managed by trustees that you won't even know, because that is what the law dictates. All this other thing that is distractions. Okay, even though, but just know that it's great for knowledge, and thank you to Peter of England for providing that. But it's not going to get you anywhere unless you want to stay in the system. That's up to you again. Okay, with that, I probably already made this video too long, but now if you want to deal, now you know succinctly and absolutely that if you want to deal with your true dominion rights, then you better learn what the law is, and that's why I do my series. Okay? If you want to deal with a common law interest and want to be held in common law, I don't know how you're going to do that really, because those are generally held by lords and barons and so forth. Okay? And that's run through bloodlines and families and the patriarchal system of primogeniture. That is, hey, they've got their own rules. I don't even know how you could get involved unless you can find some bloodline connection. But why would you? I don't know. Again, that's up to you. Or you want to go into the game, into the Monopoly game, and you want to play and move your token around the board. That's equity, and that's what the blank banking cartel have a right over. They don't have a right over you. They have a right over the game because they wrote the rules, and the rules are for equity. Thank you, and I hope this video was beneficial to you and will assist you in retrieving what is already within you, the God within, which is your dominion rights. God bless.